what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Paranormal Axetvities with your host, Ben Axe. We have an awesome guest lined up for here today in just a few minutes. Miss Cynthia Seer from the True Hauntings and Scary Stories podcast will be joining not just me, but also my lovely wife, Dena, to talk about her experiences from a house that she visited quite a bit as a child, along with more present-day stories as well. Great guest, great podcast that she does, and can't wait to have her on here in just a few minutes. But before that, it is the Paranormal Axetivity of the week. And yes, I do have one this week. And it's kind of a repetitive one from one in the past. But let's get right into it. So last week, there were 3 nights in a row where I slept on the couch in the living room. Not because Dena and I were fighting, but because apparently I snore in my sleep, and she had it for those 3 days. And so, like, Tuesday or Wednesday, she kept waking me up over and over and over again. I was like, you know what? I'm going downstairs. I want to sleep on the couch because I'm tired of getting woken up, and she's tired of getting woken up. So I went down there. First night, I had no issues. Slept pretty much all night. And then the second night that I went down there, which I believe was either Thursday or Friday, I went down there. And I woke up in the middle of the night, probably right around 3 a.m. And like the way my living room is set up, is my living room. To the right of my living room is the dining room / kitchen. It's like one big open space kitchen and dining room. And I'm just laying on my couch. I wake up in the middle of the night, TV's on, but pretty low. I had the light dimmed. I had the volume pretty low. And as I'm laying there, I hear my kitchen sink just kick on. Like, I just hear the faucet, draining water out of the faucet. Like somebody just hit the nozzle and it was pouring out. And I stared at it for a couple of seconds. I'm like, what? I'm not getting up. Like, there's no way. And then a few seconds later, it just turns off. I'm like, well, son of a bitch. And one time that has happened in the past when Dena and I were actually playing a game at the bar in the kitchen. We were playing, I think Dena mentioned it was Clue. And we watched it physically turn on. We were sitting there. I think this was a prior episode as well. But yeah, we were just sitting there and it kicked on. We saw the handle move. We saw the water pour out. As we were staring at it, it turned off. And as I'm laying there at 3 a.m. the other night, I heard the exact same thing. Granted, I didn't see the water actually coming out as I was laying on my couch. But I definitely heard it. And I even thought, well, maybe it's the toilet. Sometimes in your water, I'm not sure the technical terms here, 'cause I'm not a plumber, but you hear the toilet run, that water run, and then it goes off, and then it runs. So I thought maybe it was that. So I actually kind of stayed awake for a while, and I waited, and I actually heard that happen in the bathroom. Very different sound, very distinctually different. So definitely wasn't the toilet making noises. It was definitely the water turning on at the kitchen sink. So yeah, that is my paranormal activity of the week. Nothing too super exciting. I didn't see an actual ghost, but I mean, whose sinks just turn themselves on and off? This is the second time that's happened in this house now. And it's been about a year apart. So very, very exciting stuff. All right, guys. Well, let's just get on to it here. I mentioned that we have a very special guest, Cynthia Seer, along with my wife, Dena, joining us for the rest of this episode. So let's get right into it. Miss Cynthia Seer from the True Hauntings and Scary Stories podcast. How's it going today?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. I was on your show before, and it was an awesome time, and I'm excited to continue that conversation right here on this show. All right. So before we get rolling here, why don't you just tell us about, your show, True Hauntings and Scary Stories, and kind of your background in the whole paranormal side of things?
Sure. True Hauntings and Scary Stories is my podcast. TrueHauntings.com is my blog. And then I've got my little Facebook group where we just share silly memes and talk shit. And yeah, that's kind of what I do. Paranormal background, the beginning, like that's how it is for me. My grandparents have had a wicked haunted house, and I practically grew up there. So when I got into school and other kids didn't have grandparents with haunted houses, I was like, what do you mean? Like, every mom's house is haunted. What are you talking about? I don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth.
I get that. I'm the same way. My house growing up was, haunted. I would always hear footsteps and that kind of stuff, and nobody understood that. I get it completely.
Yeah. So that's how I grew up, has at least one story of their own about something that's happened in the house. So
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
why don't you just tell us about that house? So, like, what kind of house was it? Like, like how many stories and that kind of stuff, and just like talk
Sure.
about, some of those stories from that home.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have got some. So it all started back in no.
Back in
There
1910.
no further. So my grandparents' house is in St. Augustine, Florida, which is kind of known as a very haunted town anyway. That town was founded in 1565.
Wow.
So
Wow.
very old town.
Awesome.
So their house was built in 1876, and it is a 3-story Gothic Victorian mansion kind of a house. It's huge. And they bought it a few years maybe before I was born, and then started moving in right about the time I was a thing. And they bought it condemned, so they had to really fix it up. So it took a few years to get fully moved in and everything. But yeah, so my very beginning memories are that. And the story of the house is amazing. Like this is straight up scary movie storyline stuff. So here's the thing. The people that lived in the family before my grandparents, they were ex-carnival workers. Some of them performed, I think the lady of the house, let's call her, she played the baritone and she was a seamstress, so she would make costumes and stuff. So they kind of retired in this home, and he would make big ball gowns and stuff for like the rich people in St. Augustine. At the time there was Flagler Hotel, and there was a lot of people there. So that was what she did to kind of make ends meet. But their family was very reclusive. They did not prefer to leave the house ever. They had their groceries delivered. They homeschooled their children, from what I understand.
Nice.
They had a boy and a girl. It was her second husband, so the kids were half siblings. So because she would never let the kids leave the house, boy and girl, when they got to be older, teenagers, they...
Oh, no.
Yes, they were very close siblings. And yeah, and the daughter actually became pregnant by her half-brother. So the lady of the house was furious, and she like snuck the daughter off, and when the baby came, she brought the little boy back and raised him as her own, told everyone it was her baby, and that was believed. So she raised that baby, and that was fine. Well, guess what? They did not learn. When that little boy became a teenager, you will not believe what happened.
What happened?
He was with his mother, the daughter, and he got her pregnant. So she got pregnant again, but this time by her son, who she had with her half brother.
All right, now.
So her son nephew is her baby daddy.
Yeah.
When it comes to the line here.
So have you read Flowers in the Attic? Because this feels...
Girl, I have. Let me tell you a little secret. Okay. Yeah. My nanny actually wrote a book that lived in the house before her. It's the only book she ever wrote. And I can't tell you the name of it, and I can't tell you details.
Your nanny wrote a book?
Yes, my nanny did.
My nanny wrote songs. That's really cool. Sorry.
Nice.
I want to backing off of that. My nanny wrote too, but music. That's so cool.
Nice. So she did, but I can't tell you details of the book because I will tell you it published the year I was in, and she included her actual address in the book.
Oh,
so all you would have to do is Google search the name of the book and her name, and you would immediately know where her house is.
Well, that's
so.
But that's really cool. That's so
cool. Well,
I
tell you that because her book published almost a year before Flowers in published.
Oh,
because people have accused her of copying that storyline idea, but her book published almost a full year, like 11 months before that book did.
That is crazy.
Wow. That is crazy.
That is crazy.
That's really
if anybody copied anyway, I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, that's what they do. Writers, they I mean, James Patterson is not writing his own book. Unless he owns a thesaurus and he's just copying and pasting. He wrote one book and then he's got a thesaurus. So, and he, pastes, you know what I mean?
Thesaurus.
Yeah. So people are going out there and they're finding these like local people. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could totally see that happening.
Yeah.
But good for you.
So anyway,
So-
with the mom,
Sorry, yeah.
son, I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's
Weird family thing going on. Okay. So daughter got pregnant again, this time by her own son, whom she had with her half brother.
So her nephew.
It's like Jerry Springer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Deep issues. So lady of the house, and the reason why I call her that, I don't even use their names, is because my nanny had their names in her book. And if I say these things, you will be able to figure it out. So I'm trying to protect. It's a private residence, and you know.
I like that you're doing that though, because like lady of that's official enough for us to be able to follow.
Right.
Whose names
It's like
will
Gothic
lose
home
track.
kind of feel.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And
You say
she,
Little House, I know what she does.
from what I understand, she carried herself that way. Like she was the lady of the house, and she ruled with an iron fist kind of situation, all that kind of stuff. So she was furious. This time she hid the daughter and told no one. And the daughter had the baby in secret without assistance and all that stuff. She survived it, right?
Wow.
So baby comes, it's another little boy, but this little boy, because of the level of family ties, he is mentally handicapped and he is a little deformed. Like he just didn't quite look right. His facial features were not quite right and stuff. So lady of the house basically hates him because of he's there, you know. So she keeps him on the third floor and she tells the kids, you guys take care of him. He's your problem. I want nothing to do with him. So she won't hold him or anything. He's like the family secret on the third floor of the house. So that goes on for a few years. The little boy, because he's mentally handicapped and he's getting the proper instruction and stuff from the people taking care of him, he starts to act out. His behavior is a bit of an issue. And the lady of the house has clients over for fitting stuff. So one night she's got a client there doing a fitting, and the woman like notices the tantrum that this little boy is having that night. And so the lady of the house has to kind of explain it away or whatever. And she's furious. So when her client leaves, she storms up to the third floor, locks it up, and will not let her kids go up to tend to him anymore. And he starves to death up there.
That's really sad.
Now to clarify, this person that also starved to death was his own uncle and grandchild.
Yeah, he was. I'm not even sure, like how, you know, you'd have to write a map. And he was only about 5 or 6, we think, when that happened. So he was young. Yeah, he probably did not understand what was happening. Probably just all of a sudden the people that tended to him just stopped coming and he couldn't get out. And so, like, my grandparents think this story bought the house. It was condemned. The family had died off. They had known the last family member before he passed, and he told them stories. And then when they bought the house, everything was still in it. Journals, diaries, family photos, clothing, everything. They died off. So they took all their stuff. So they kind of pieced it all together based on the stuff they found, what the neighbors told them, because the neighbors that lived across the street had lived there for years and years and years and knew about the family. They told them stories of seeing a little boy in the windows, like, you know, making a ruckus or whatever. There were rumors that he would people from the third floor window when they walked past the house.
It's kind of like Jack in the movie Jack, when you see Robin Williams like looking out at the people and like messing with them. That reminds me of it.
So what happened next was she still didn't unlock the third floor until the smell became an issue.
I was going to ask.
Then she unlocked the door. Well, no one knew he existed. So she allowed her kids to bury him in secret in the backyard. And that is where we believe he still is.
Is it unmarked, I would imagine?
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Unmarked in that like it's a field of grass, or is there like flowers or like a garden bed or a tree or bush or something?
I don't know exactly because I don't know, like, I can't say that we know the location of it per se, but the rumor that it's in like a section of that yard where there isn't anything really. My grandparents built some gardens in the yard, but they didn't build them over top of that, for obvious reasons. But yeah, so they buried him, and that's where he still is, I think.
That's quite a history of a home.
Yeah. So like you were there a lot as a kid and you had things happen? Like you
Oh yeah.
So were they things that you heard or saw or felt? Like what was your experience?
Yes. Yes to all that. So
Yes.
first of all, I should say that I am really sensitive to that stuff, whether it was because I grew up around it so much, how I was going to be, I don't know. But I always joke that if you want to know if your house is haunted, just invite me over.
I do that.
You know.
That's how man. Yeah.
I knew you two would get along.
Yeah.
So then, so follow-up question then is, so how old were you in your earliest memory, and what was it where you felt that other, you know what I mean?
Sure. So, I think my earliest memory would be when I was like 5 or 6, maybe, I'm guessing. And grandparents' house, as I said, it's really big, and the living room is very large. It spans almost the whole length and width of the house.
Sure.
And
welcoming area.
So they have a really big grand stairway. So there's 2 little stairways that come up the sides, and then they go up to a platform in the middle of the room, and then there's one big stairway that goes up to the second floor. So it's very grand. And when they first moved into the house, the second and third floor weren't finished yet, like refurbishing. So my grandpa built this wooden platform over the top, almost like a makeshift ceiling, so that us little kids couldn't go up to the second floor because it wasn't safe. Okay, so my memory is that we used to play hide and seek there all the time. And little 6-year-old me would climb up that top stair, right sandwiched in between that wood flooring thing and the step. And I would giggle and, oh, nobody will find me here or whatever. So one day I was there in my little spot giggling. And I remember distinctly suddenly thinking there's somebody there on the other side of the wood. And I could feel a cool breeze coming between the crack where the wood was and the second floor. And I didn't know anything about ghosts or anything. So I just remember trying to look through the crack to see who it was, because I was convinced that there was someone there.
Yeah. And feel that space being occupied.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the cool zero sense, because let me tell you, their house is old and there is no central heat and air, or at least there wasn't until just maybe 10 years ago. And it's broken right now anyway, because it's a big house. How are you going to central heat and air that house? You're really not.
Sure.
So, that there's no logical reason. I mean, the higher up you go in the house, the hotter it gets. So the idea that there was coolness coming from there makes no sense. That's probably my first memory. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. But, then my older cousins, I'm one of the youngest cousins. I think there's only 2 younger than me, my sister and my other cousin. So my cousins started telling me stories and, about the ghost or whatever. Then But yeah, playing hide and seek in that house was really fun because there's so many nooks and crannies, but you need to have like some guts, because you'll be hiding somewhere and you'll just know you're not alone. You can feel it settle on you, like a change in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yes. And so then my next question is, because I think there's more that you don't realize you remember. Do you ever like see things out of the corner of your eyes and you think they're like a solid object, and then you turn and there's nothing there, but like you could have sworn, and you could have even felt the air, you could have smelled it even, but then you turn and then it's empty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Did that happen a lot in that house?
Well, to be fair, that happens a lot to me all the time, but yes, in the house too. Yeah. And in the house, one time in particular, I think I've seen this twice in there. But this one time I was 19 and I was staying with my grandparents just long enough for our apartment to be finished because my grandparents owned apartment buildings all on that street and we were going to rent from them when we first got married. And so I was there. I was watching a movie on TV in my bedroom and not thinking about ghosts or anything at all, just totally absorbed in a comedy movie I was watching. Sure. And all of a sudden that feeling hit me. Yeah. And I looked up from the TV and there was a perfect oval shape floating in the middle of the sitting room that's attached to and it looked like when the road is hot and it's a mirage, it's like shimmery mirage. It looked like that, but in the shape of an oval floating in the middle of the room.
So then next question I have, sorry, no, I know this is your podcast, but I have another question. So the next question is like, when that happens to you, is it a family member or a friend that you hear or see? Who's trying to talk to you?
Well, like now or back then?
At any point, because sometimes I think like it could be the same person, and it could be the same person to get you comfortable or introduced.
I always thought that little boy had some kind of connection to me because I never saw him specifically, but I felt things with me all the time. And for a while, I think it followed me home. I would have stuff happen in my bedroom at my house apart from theirs.
Such as, like, what would you do?
Lights flickering. My dad was an electrician. There's no reason why lights should have flickered. He was on that stuff. Sure. So, like, lights flickering. One time I heard a woman singing in my bedroom randomly.
Yeah. What is that? What? Yeah. No, we need to pause right there. What is it? Is it opera? Is it she's singing with the piano? What is that? No. Let's talk about that.
It was singing very softly, like a calming melody, like almost a lullaby kind of sound.
That's coming from that house too, I bet. Like to soothe.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be the little
Maybe
boy.
it was the daughter. Maybe it was the daughter because I can't imagine. I mean, the lady of the house was musically talented, but I can't imagine her being very soothing or calming or anything. She didn't have that energy about her, I don't think.
But if you went to their rooms and played comfortably and naturally, right, in a relaxed state, then they think, oh, friend. And then, and they're just watching and interacting.
Do we know what happened to the girl who had the baby? And you mentioned that she went away.
She ended up dying of illness in the house years later.
So maybe she could have been interacting too, like
there's several people that have died in the house of natural causes, several family members, but that little boy we think he was murdered.
I gotcha.
Yeah. That's so sad.
Yeah.
How many people do we think died in the house, like roughly?
I think I was told that you can actually verify with newspapers, like obituary or whatever, 3 people.
Okay.
Officially, but there may have been more. It might be more like 5 or 6. I don't know.
Feel that. No, because 3 doesn't sound right.
Is that boy official? Is he part of that 3 or is he unofficial?
No, he does not have any birth record or anything. He's
not a person.
Right.
He's not real. Do you know
they never even named him?
There it is.
I don't call him the boy to hide his name. I call him the boy because that's what they called him.
He didn't have a nickname.
That's really sad.
At all.
The boy. Boy was his nickname.
Oh, that bums me out.
How old would he have been? Like 7?
I think he was. We've always thought maybe 5 or 6-ish, but it could have been 7. He was young. He was below for sure.
When was your last night in that house that you slept overnight?
The last time I slept there would have been right before I moved to Ohio-ish. So maybe like between 2010 and 2012. I slept there with my sister and my cousin, who's a year younger than me. And we slept there on Halloween night and we tried to like contact the spirits. We went up to that room on the 3rd floor and like tried to talk to them. I don't know what we were doing.
Did it work? Did you like use a Ouija board or how did you talk to them?
No. we just spoke and we had a recorder there, but it was a tape, like a cassette recorder
nice.
that we had. And so just because we didn't like plan it out, so we weren't unprepared, but we didn't really catch anything per se, but it was spooky.
I mean, that sounds scary.
There. Yeah. No one's ever slept on the third floor in our family. No one ever. It's just that most nights when I spent the night there as a kid, you could hear footsteps on the third floor that sounded like a grown man in combat boots, just from one end of the third floor to the other and back and forth and back and forth.
That sounds like a pretty scary house, I gotta say. I
think it's fascinating. Right. I just love it. I tried to buy it, but I couldn't work it out. But, yeah, because my nanny passed in January of 2021. She just passed a little over a year ago. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she was 94, and she had a very good life. I'm pieces, but she's with me. My grandpa's visited my dreams a couple times.
How does that go? Like, what does that mean?
I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, I didn't ask for that or anything, but he passed in 2012, and the first one was really weird. So I dreamed that I was in their house and I was standing in their kitchen. They have a tiny kitchen. These old houses, their kitchens were made for cooking purposes only. Like, there's seating there. It's like a stove and some counter space, and that's it. So I was standing in their little kitchen and I looked away, and Grandpa was standing in the doorway. And I said, "Grandpa," and I ran up to him and gave him a big hug. And he was cold, like ice cold. And I kind of jumped back and said, "Oh, you're so cold." But in the dream, I knew he was passed. In the dream, somehow I knew that he was not living. So I just said, "Oh, you're so cold." And he didn't smile or frown or anything. He just kind of turned and walked out the back door right beside there. So I followed him because in the dream, I thought, this is weird. So I followed. And when I walked out the door, Grandpa was gone, but my mom was standing in the middle of the driveway, just standing there. Again, no frown, no smile, just there. So I walked up to her and I said, "Mom, what are you doing here?" And she didn't respond or even really acknowledge me much. And then I turned back toward the house, and now Grandpa was standing there again, but this time he had a pencil and he was writing the number 74 on top of itself over and over again. And then I woke up, and I woke up immediately knowing that 74 frame, and I did not know what, like, hours, days, weeks, I don't know what it was, but I just knew it was a time frame. Like, it wasn't a good feeling, Sure. So I didn't tell a lot of people, and because I felt silly, and everybody always accused me of, making things up and all that. Because I've seen this stuff so long. I'm a very open person, so I would tell people, and they'd be like, I didn't tell a whole lot of people. So as I counted 74 hours, and nothing happened at that point. So I was like, okay, well, good. I'm not dead, so that's good. So then I counted out 74 days. And as this got closer, about a week before it was going to be that day, I called my mom and I said, "Mom, listen, I had this dream a while back," and I told her about it. And I said, "So maybe just don't go like skydiving that day or something. Like just stay home that day in case." And we laughed about it, and that was it. And then my granny, my mom's mom, had been sick. She had not been feeling well. And then my mom called me a few days later and she said, "Cindy, that day that you said is the day that she's supposed to possibly hear test results back about whether she might have cancer or not." And I was like, change the date. Like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And so sure enough, on that 74th day, she found out she had stage 4 lung cancer. Jesus. She was diagnosed with it that day. And then about a year later, she passed from it.
Oh, man. So that you're in the dream he was telling you in 74 days, things are going to change forever.
Yeah, I think he was warning me that something big was about to happen, that I was gonna have to deal with that, you know.
Sure.
And my grandpa's on my dad's side. So he was not my granny's like husband. That was my nanny's husband. Nanny was still living at the time. So yeah, that happened. And then the second one was a little harder to interpret. I really didn't understand what that one meant for quite a while. This one, I was dreaming and I was in it felt stormy, like blackness and chaotic a little. And Pa would like appear over here and then he'd disappear and appear over here. And I kept asking him, for some reason, is my husband okay? Is my husband okay? Is my husband going to die? I kept asking him those things. I don't know why. My husband at the time was in his late 30s and, you know, fine. Why would I even wonder that? But that's what was a dream. And he kept disappearing, like he didn't want to tell me, like he kept trying to avoid it. And then finally I saw my hand getting squished, like almost like a car accident, but not in a car, like in a container or something, like he was just being squished and crumpled. And I interpreted that as a car accident at the time. And I thought, oh no, like don't drive anywhere. I'll drive, you know.
I got this.
But then, oh gosh, how long was it? Maybe a year later, 6 months to a year later, my husband, who at the time was just about to 9, had a stroke out of nowhere. And at first, the doctors thought it was a fluke. You know, why would a 9-year-old man have a stroke? And he recovered from it and didn't really have any deficits. So that was good. And then not quite a year later, maybe 10 months later, 11 months later, he had another stroke. And then 2 weeks later, he had a stroke. And then about a month after that, he had a 4th stroke. Jesus. And then a year after that, not quite a year, maybe another 10 or 11 months, he had a 5th stroke. And I'm happy to report that he just turned 44.
Awesome.
And he is healthy for right now. He does have a few deficits, but they're not anything that you would notice. I know normal people would look at him and never assume that he had 1, let alone 5. But then I got to thinking, like, the doctors found out that the reason he started having all these strokes was because the right side of his brain, the veins in his brain started narrowing and closing for no reason. And then it occurred to me, what if the squishing that I saw was his veins narrowing? You know, like maybe that's what that meant. I still don't know for sure, but that's what I'm guessing.
I feel like you probably are more capable than you realize, because I hear the hesitancy where you're like, I could see this, but it could be this, or I'm not like you're devil's advocating yourself. I get that, dude. No, believe me, I get that, because I tell Ben all the time I feel schizophrenic. Like I don't like I do, but like no, I think that there's quite a bit that you're very capable. I could see you seeing that and being like, this is what's going to happen, because a lot of what you were talking about, where people visit you before something happens. I had that right before my little brother passed away, like 3 or 4 months before my brother passed away. My best friend came to me, and she had been passed for 4-ish years is the math. I round everything up to 4, but it's like 4, 5, or 6. Everybody died 4, 5, and 6 years apart. But when Jade died, and I was driving down the road, and I was driving down here on Pennyroyal. Sure. I was driving into the sun, and because it was
not like, literally
7 o'clock, you know, where the sun sets here, and it's 7 o'clock right in your eyes. And that happened, and I felt her in the car seat next to me, to the point where I was like, put your seatbelt on. And then I'm in the car alone, and I was listening to oh crap, what were that band called? It was like the not Dropkick Murphys. It was somebody else. But I was driving, and I was listening to the song, and she showed up, and she was like, hey, and I jumped, and I didn't even turn my head because I knew if I saw, I would see her. And I hadn't physically seen her in so long, but I knew I was going to see her. And I was like, what are you doing here? And she was like, I can tell you something. And I was like, is it my mom? And she said, no. And I said, then who is it? And she said, I can't tell you. I just can tell you it's not going to be good. And you need to be ready. Yeah. And then when my mom passed away, same experience, but it was probably 3 to 6 months sooner. And it was my brother. And he came to me and he was like, you need to be ready. And in my head, I'm going, fuck yeah, Dad's going to die. He's just such an asshole. I'm ready to bury him. Let's go. And he's like, not.
Oh, I'm here for it.
I know, right? Like, and I'm just sitting here. He's like, this motherfucker drank one too many beers and drove one too many times, and he is dead. And I'm like, you got it. Ben's going to be the guy that tells me, and it's going to be him, and I'm going to be fine. And everybody's going to think I'm a psychopath. But really,
oh gosh,
peace with this relationship when I was so much younger, and I've just been acting. So I'm like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And he's like, it's not that, it's not that. And I'm like, shut up, it's that, because that's the only thing.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Then my mom ended up dying, and Ben is the person that told me my mom passed. So like I had that experience where like somebody came to me and told me something was going to happen. They gave me a vision. I saw something very specific. And then you're questioning everything about your life for 6 months and you think you're crazy. And then something happens.
Yeah.
I've had that a couple times. I think you need to start believing in what you can do. I know. Do you do any incense or like crystals or anything?
Well, actually, I can't do any scented anything in the house anymore because of his strokes. He can't handle smells.
I think
So,
to get
sage is not a thing I can do.
No, but
I do have crystal. I have one on my neck right now.
Good.
You
You need to feel grounded, because I think the thing is those things give you kind of power. But if you don't have them, and it's very easy to go without because you're like, this is in my head. I don't need this. And then, and I don't need, but if you just give yourself that, I think your stories, the things that you feel like, instead of being like, I feel like this is this, you're going to be like, nope, they were wearing this. They smelled like this. This is their first, middle, and last name. This is their birth date and their death date. Like, you're going to do some creepy crap. If you just ground that energy somewhere, it's going to be insane.
I don't know how to, how when you are getting things like that, it's hard to turn your own so that you get truly what you're getting and you're not interpreting it. You know what I mean? You're not adding your own twist to it.
That's why
I worry that I'm accidentally going to interpret something wrong because I'm or predicting or whatever.
I do that all the time with myself, don't I?
Yeah.
I make Ben witness. And I try to, he records sometimes and but I challenge myself. I try to remember what it is that I have. And then I just take to Google like crazy and I'll find it. One night I have found 3 or 4 obituaries because I'm like, nope, I let go. And, Jesus take the wheel moment, whatever I'm not really super Christian, but if you let go, let God, let go, let whatever your God is take control for a minute and let your belief system. And as long as you feel safe and centered and no matter what's going to happen, you're going to come right back to who you are, unchanged, totally safe. And everything about all of your connections are safe. And as long as you don't feel threatened, that's the thing about all this is you shouldn't feel threatened. As long as you don't feel threatened in what you're doing and you can send your spirit out, it's going to come back to you with some intense. I kept signaling to Ben. I wanted to ask you about a ball. I'm bouncing up and down.
I didn't know what you were doing.
I was like, there's a ball. I want to ask her about the ball. There's a ball. I want to ask her about the ball. I don't know if the ball was at your grandparents' house or I don't know where the ball is. There's a ball. I want to talk about a ball. There's a ball.
I want to talk about it. Like a basketball?
No, it's not a basketball. It's like a red. I don't know if it's a bouncy ball. I don't know if it can fit into your hand or
hold up. There's a big red bouncy ball in that when I did childcare, I had a whole bunch of them and I just kept that one because my youngest likes to mess around with it. And he goes down there and bounces sometimes, it's in our entertainment room in the basement.
Big red bouncy ball, you said. That's what I was saying. Big red bouncy ball. And it's so it doesn't fit in the palm of your hand, but the palms of your hands smack it. And the palms of your feel good when you smack it. That's what I can feel. That feels good. See, why am I getting this stuff? It's because I can feel it off of you. And if I can feel it off of you, you can feel some stuff off of me. You know what I mean? It's magnetism. Stuff comes. Yeah. You need to believe in it. I think you're very powerful. I think you're more powerful than you realize.
Wow.
There you
Okay.
go.
I'll
Yeah,
take
we
it.
realize-
I've always known that this stuff is attracted to me. I live in a house that should not be haunted. I've always lived in houses other than my grandparents should not have been haunted, but I've never lived in a house that wasn't.
Sure.
Every
Right.
house I've ever lived in has been haunted and active.
Yep.
And I know now it's not the house, it's me.
Absolutely.
I don't know if the energies are passing and they sense me and come to me or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's it.
But
No, it's like you're kind of a magnet and they're kind of, you know what I mean? So like
Mhm.
there's something about you that they're like, oh, this feels familiar. It's almost like when you're dialing a radio and you're driving
Wow.
down the road and you're trying to get a good tune. That's how they exist. And so they're bouncing around to the different stations. And then you come in very loud and clear on an AM when they're looking at FM. And they're like, what's this? Let's check out this NPR shit. Like, let's talk. You know? We're gonna
I
have
love it.
yeah, it's like
I
you're
love it.
honest chats instead of just getting lost in the noise. And
Yeah.
that's what it is. And like I don't know, it's just there's more. It's like I don't know, I can just feel it very strongly.
Sure.
Like I was brought here because we both have a nanny, you know, and we talked about that. Like we you know,
Right.
there's so much in common that we had, and that was the thing that I needed to
I
be
think
able
that
to
was
say.
spoken off air. So,
I'm
those
sorry,
of you that know
yes.
what we're talking about,
My-
when we were talking before we went live,
Yeah.
somehow, you know, we just, I don't know how it
So,
started.
grandmas, Southern grandmas are called nanny. And I had a great grandma that I called nanny. She lived in Kentucky, and her nanny, that was not granny, nanny.
Sure.
And that's
Yeah.
actually, if you're in kind of Southern areas, that's what they call their elderly
So
women. is
Cindy had
nanny.
her nanny, you have your nanny,
Mhm.
Nanny.
and I've never heard anybody else call their grandmother's nanny
And when
ever.
we talked about nanny,
Yeah.
we'd be around people that would be like, "Oh, you're rich." No, we're dirt poor.
Yeah.
I can't afford help. This is my great grandma. No, that was a big
Yeah.
so the you know, and just I don't know, there was just so much more to that. Like the ball came to me.
Sure.
There's a lot.
And another thing, Cindy, too, I think we talked about it on your show on True Hauntings and Scary Stories. We talked about how you can do all of this stuff, and your husband doesn't really believe in ghosts, right?
He doesn't believe at all. But I will say I've been married almost 24 years now. It'll be 24 years this year. And he finally had an experience that he came to his house a couple years back. He was, let's see, myself and two of my sons were in the living room on the first floor of the house. Our house is a 5-level split, so we have 2 basements.
Oh, nice.
So he went down to the first basement, like the upper one. That's the entertainment room or whatever. We're not rich, I promise. We just got a really good deal on this house.
2 basements.
So, right? It's my fancy entertainment room. I don't know. So, and anyway, he went down there to get something out of the room, and we were all on the first floor. We were not talking, but the kids were like looking at their phones or whatever. I don't know what they were doing. And I was in the kitchen, and he came busting upstairs. This, you know, I don't believe in anything ever, dude. Comes busting upstairs, and he's like, "Where's our middle son?" You know, we'll call him D. "Where's D?" And I'm like, "He's there on the couch." And he's like, "Was he just talking?" And I said, No, he wasn't. And he goes, "Well, I just heard him like right behind my head say, 'I'm right here.'" Like his voice say, "I'm right here," right behind my husband's ear. And he spun around and nobody was there, and he freaked out and ran upstairs. And I was like, yeah, I'm so excited right now.
Finally.
Normal people would be like, "Oh no, my house is haunted." I'm like, yes.
We used to fight about it, remember? Like the way that I interacted with things and the way that you saw things wasn't always on the same page. And I think one of the most validating experiences that I had with that was when we didn't see eye to eye, and then we got a flat tire.
Yeah, we were in downtown Philadelphia. We were coming back from a concert like 1 a.m. and like
A Temple of the Dog concert with Chris Cornell singing. He's like, "Oh, it's not a big. It's a fucking big deal." But anyway, so we're driving back to the hotel after just seeing Chris Cornell play as a front man for Temple of the Dog for the first time in 25 years.
This is before he died, by the way. He wasn't a ghost. He was,
No, it wasn't a ghost. This is not.
Yeah, so we were just arguing about ghosts. I don't even know why. We were arguing about ghosts.
Yeah, it was like because what I could see versus what you had experienced at that time, you didn't have this like you were formulating kind
Sure.
of where you
And
were
then
gonna
mid
be.
argument, we just hit it like we just got a
My
flat tire
tire popped.
downtown
1 o'clock in
Philadelphia
the
at 1
morning.
a.m. I was like, oh, we're going to die now.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I was like, it's because I'm trying to explain this and you're feeling this, and that we're not seeing the same thing. And we got a flat tire because of it.
That happens.
Wow.
Yeah. That stuff's real.
So does your husband believe now is the question?
Because Ben does.
No. No. He all to say is I can't explain what happened, but he will not say that it's paranormal. And he teases me like, how come everything's a ghost, Cindy? Why's everything got to be a ghost or whatever?
Yeah.
Like, okay. In fact, funny story. So when we first got married, I was 19 and he had just turned 20. We got married real young. Should not have done that in hindsight. Kids don't get married yet. But we did. And so his first birthday that he had after we got married, it was like 8 months after we got married, I decided I'm going to convince him that ghosts are real, that paranormal, right? So we lived in St. Augustine. So I found one of the most haunted bed and breakfasts in St. Augustine. And then I rented room in the haunted bed and breakfast.
Nice.
And I booked it for his birthday. And I told him like it was this nice thing that I did for his birthday, but he didn't know it was crazy haunted and that I had an ulterior motive. Okay. So we go there and beautiful. I very much recommend this inn. It's called the St. Francis Inn. If you're ever in St. Augustine, that place is beautiful. They're super nice there. They talk about their ghosts freely. They embrace it, which I love. Nice. And it was Lily's room. And Lily was a servant, a slave that died there. So she was in love with a soul with, and it was like a whole thing. And she was, I think she either committed suicide or somebody hanged her or something. Very dramatic. It's all on their website. Anyway. So we stay in Lily's room. It's beautiful. Well, it happened to be a Monday night and my husband was in rest time. So I fell asleep while he was watching wrestling. Okay. So, you very romantic we were. So middle of the night. So they had some ghost stories. So what they told me was that the ghost likes women's makeup, purses and stuff. So I took all my makeup and I put it in a Ziploc bag on the other side of the room on a chair. And I was just hoping that something would happen to it or whatever.
Sure.
So middle of the night, we're sleeping and I like to have my covers up by my neck, all snuggled in. And I was laying on my back at the time, but normally I'm on my side. So I was back and what I think happened, and I'm probably just second guessing myself. What I'm pretty sure happened is that the covers started being pulled off of me. So It caused me to stir. I didn't realize what was happening at the time. I was asleep. So I stirred and I pulled the covers back up and turned onto my side. Well, just a moment or two after that, I felt this really hard, forceful slap on the back of my neck. Like somebody would popped me in the neck, like, wake up. So I instantly am fully awake.
Fair enough.
And I'm laying there on my back with the covers up, freaking out, looking around. And I realize that there's this weird noise, like a really soft rustling noise. So I kind of peek up over the bed and I can see that clear Ziploc bag of makeup is moving on the chair. Like somebody is shifting the makeup inside and it's making a little rustling noise. And so I'm like, well, crap. So, I'm getting what I wanted, I guess. So I'm laying there. My husband is a hard sleeper. So I just laid there for a little while. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I fell asleep without peeing. Now I have to pee. Oh. What am I going to do? So they had told me that a cleaning lady had gotten trapped in that bathroom for 3 hours and that bathroom door has no lock. The door just slammed closed while she was in there working and they couldn't open it for 3 hours. Wow. So I've got that in my head, that lovely little treasure.
Sure.
So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I'm like trying to wake him up and he's not waking up. So I get him awake just enough so that he turns on the light, like a dimmer light. So, but then he's on again. So I creep out of bed, and they had this really heavy chair beside the bed and the bathroom door. So I opened the bathroom door and I like propped it up open with the chair. Like I moved the chair in front of it, and I was like, that's pretty sturdy. I should be okay. Kid you not, I was in running stance, hovering over that toilet. I swear, if I'd heard a single pin drop, I'd have peed all over the place. Like I would have just hightailed it. Yes, I was prepared for whatever I had to do. So nothing happened. I peed and got back in bed. And sorry, that was so graphic, but
hey,
it happened.
Good story.
So yeah. So I creep back in bed, and basically I just laid there. That was like probably 2:30 or 3 when all that stuff went down. So I really just laid there the whole rest of the night and listened to my makeup bag shift every now and then. And yeah, and he experienced nothing. Of course, I told you this stuff always comes to me. I don't know what I was thinking. So then I tell the people that own the place, I tell them the next day what happened to me. And the lady goes, "Oh, honey, that ghost only haunts women." Defeats the purpose of what I was trying to do.
That's awesome.
But
That sounds terrifying, though. To watch like a bag like that move across, nah, I would run.
yeah. True story. Really happened.
I like it. But that was an awesome story. And again, I really appreciate you hanging out tonight on the Paranormal Activities. Great time as always. I guess this is the first time.
Pleasure.
Pleasure always hanging out with And one more time, just tell all of our fans your show's name, your social media handles, and where we can find you.
Sure. True Hauntings and Scary Stories is my podcast. It's on all the major podcast apps. Get to my Facebook and Twitter, I think. Twitter, I'm at True Hauntings, but with a Z at the end.
Nice.
And yeah, because the other one was taken. You know, what are you going to do?
I get it.
TrueHauntings.com, though, has links for all that stuff. And you can get pretty much wherever you want to go there. So, yeah, that's me.
Awesome. It was a great time. I loved hearing those stories. And I think that Florida home is going to probably be my nightmares later. So awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. And until next time. All right, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Paranormal Activities. Hope you all enjoyed it. Huge thank you again to my wife, Dena, for joining this episode. And a huge thank you to Cynthia Seer from the True Hauntings and Scary Stories podcast. Be sure to go over to truehauntings.com, check out all of her material, and listen to her podcast, True Hauntings and Scary Stories, at any platform, wherever you get your shows, wherever you get your podcasts. They're all there. And that's going to be it. Be sure if you do have any stories, send them my way. If you want to be on my show, you can email me at paranormalactspodcast@gmail.com, and find me on Facebook and Twitter. So that's it. And let's just all continue to learn about the paranormal together.